Second.
On adoption, then all those in favor, motion's carried. We have three delegations on this fine evening. First of all, we have Jeremy Dunn here from the BC Salmon Farmers Association to give us an update on the Sustainability Progress Report. Welcome, Jeremy, and thank you. You have the podium there for the next 10 minutes.
And Jeremy is very slow, so just be patient.
Okay.
I assume this is forward?
Yeah, just it's not quite slow.
Sometimes it does, and sometimes it doesn't.
Okay.
Yeah, I can.
I'm pushing this arrow here, right?
Yeah. Yeah, that should be it.
Okay, there we go.
It'll come.
Maybe it's got to stand.
Okay. Your Worship and councillors, thank you for having me here tonight to share a little with you about our sector in salmon farming and finfish aquaculture ahead of the BC Shellfish and Seafood Festival, which we're proud to be a part of and looking forward to being here in the Comox Valley and celebrating everything that seafood brings to this part of the world and its importance in our province. Our association has 41 members here in British Columbia, farmers and service and supply companies, including Excel Community College, and we have two representatives here from the college tonight. They provide very valuable services in education for our farming companies and here in the Comox Valley, and our members are up and down Vancouver Island. Our members are generally focused on raising salmon, although some raise sablefish and steelhead and other species. This map gives you an idea a bit of where the active farms are located. There's 109 farm sites in our membership of marine sites. 60 to 70 are active at any one time. Important to note, you see on the graphic there that a salmon farm itself is not a big space in the environment. However, there's an incredible amount of space for the fish to live in. 98% of the farm is water, 2% at their maximum size is biomass, and overall, on the coast of British Columbia, we have 0.05% of the coast used to grow 75,000 metric tons of salmon. And by comparison, in Norway, they have about the same biophysical coastal space as we have in British Columbia, and they grow 1.2 million tons. So we're only about 3 to 4% of the global supply. This is a zoom in on what you see here in this region. Those are the active farms in this area. You've got farms up in a couple farms operating up in the Discovery Islands from Cermak Marine Harvesting, Grieg Seafood, and then Grieg Seafood has a few farms down in the Sunshine Coast area near Fall River. Earlier this year, we launched our first ever Sustainability Progress Report. This didn't put out any new information, but what it did was try and tell a more comprehensive story for people, because we've heard from many that there isn't a lot of information about salmon farming, but in fact the opposite is true. There's so much information online in so many different spreadsheets through Fisheries and Oceans Canada, through members, that it's really hard to figure out. So we put this book out, we'll put another one out in October that updates key information and key questions. One question we get asked a lot is about sea lice. Sea lice is a naturally occurring parasite in the ocean. It's part of a healthy environment. And in fact, you see more sea lice when you see more wild fish. We really want more wild fish here, and we're working to do everything we can with research partners to learn more and do that. But that brings sea lice into farms. And as you can see here, it's fairly predictable when the run happens. The sea lice come in, you have to mitigate and manage and move that down. And this graph really shows that we have a very strong management regime for that pest in our farms. We're working to get better all the time, but it's working quite well. One of the greatest advancements in salmon aquaculture globally has been in feed. About 5 or 6 years ago, you would hear comments that and criticisms that salmon farmers were taking more small fish from the ocean to feed salmon. And that wasn't sustainable. And it wasn't sustainable environmentally, and it honestly wasn't sustainable from a business perspective, because You can't grow as a global industry if you're reliant on a finite feed for your animal. Now today there's 18% marine ingredients in feed that is fed to salmon, and with better practices, we're seeing feed conversion of about 1.2 kilos of feed into the salmon to get 1 kilo of fish out, and so now we are, in fact, a net producer of fish. Antibiotics, again, covered in the Sustainability Progress Report, a 7-fold reduction in the use of antibiotics over the last 10 years in salmon farming in BC, largely as a result of the switch from primarily growing Pacific salmon to growing Atlantic salmon. With the animal husbandry and practices in that they require, they have less issues that need antibiotics. In comparison, this is our friends in the land animal industry, and they've remained relatively steady over the last number of years. Antibiotics is only ever administered through a prescription with a veterinarian, and not for growth of the animal, but to deal with a medical issue if it has one. And right now we're at about 0.05 kilos of antibiotics used per farm-raised salmon and annually harvested. So it's a very small amount to keep the animals healthy when they need it. From an economic perspective, again, sustainability is about 3 pillars, and we value them all equally: economic, social, and environmental. Salmon farming in BC, a $1.1 billion industry, about 5,000 jobs. There's full-time jobs, family supporting jobs on Vancouver Island, on average about 30% higher than the provincial median income. There's a breakdown of the economic impact that you see here in British Columbia. 40% of the economic impact seen Campbell River North on Vancouver Island, crucial family supporting, First Nation community supporting jobs. But also something we try and share in Vancouver, where my office is based, is that salmon farming is important in Metro Vancouver, and it's something that myself and other association heads in the resource sector are trying to share in Vancouver, that the economy happens outside of Vancouver and British Columbia, that hardworking people in the province are building the economy, and that work that's happening in places like Comox Valley and up Vancouver Island is what's supporting the lifestyle of people in Vancouver, and I think people in the city need to learn that more, and we're working to be able to share that. From a First Nations perspective, salmon farmers have been working with First Nations from a business perspective longer than probably any other industry. We currently have 78% of the salmon raised in British Columbia covered under an economic benefits protocol agreement. That's 19 agreements, including the Comox Band here, who has an economic benefits agreement with Marine Harvest and is involved on a business relationship with that company. From a community perspective, again, we are very involved in the BC Shellfish and Seafood Festival, and very much looking forward to that event. And overall, on Vancouver Island, you'll see farm-raised salmon donated at very many community events, about 15,000 pounds last year, and over $600,000 annually from salmon farming companies, primarily into charities on Vancouver Island. Third-party certifications is really a norm in salmon farming. At least every farm has at least one third-party certification. We have North America's only organic Chinook farmer in BC. All of the farms have the BAP certification, and now are working towards the latest certification, which is the ASC certification developed by the WWF. Our feed companies all have certifications for all their ingredients, meaning the traceability in the aquaculture sector, both from a finfish perspective and a shellfish perspective, is unparalleled in seafood. Wild seafood is a fantastic resource in this province. The traceability in aquaculture is where everybody is trying to get to. The demand is really insatiable globally. We can't grow enough here in British Columbia to service it. About 70% of our farm-raised salmon is exported. This year we hit a record to the United States, and we more than doubled our output to Asia. We're starting to see kind of the early days of forestry with respect to farm salmon in Asia, and see that as a great market as the culture learns to enjoy the product. Oh, we're doing so well. Okay. The last piece I'll share is our Marine Environment Research Program. We've committed $1.5 million to learning more about wild Pacific salmon and farm salmon and how they interact, especially here in the Discovery Islands and up into the Broughton Archipelago. We're the decisions aren't made by our board or salmon farmers. They're made by an independent science advisory council that we appointed, covered by those groups there, esteemed fisheries scientists. They've committed about $420,000 in the last year and a half for 1 year and multi-year projects. A couple of them that I think are really interesting is working with the Vancouver Aquarium to find a cleaner fish that may eat the sea lice from fish, and they live harmoniously with the salmon. This is happening in the Atlantic Ocean. They have a cleaner fish called a wrasse that eats that picks the lice off the fish and keeps your farm in equilibrium. We haven't yet found the right species in the Pacific Ocean, but the aquarium is working with us to try and find that. And we're working with the Pacific Salmon Foundation, UBC, and others on tracking the migration of smolts, sockeye and Chinook smolts up through Discovery Islands from the mouth of the river. This was a picture from just last weekend where they took those acoustic tags and put them in Chinook smolts and let them go up in the Chilko River, and they'll go down the Fraser River, and they'll be able to monitor through an acoustic tag as the fish swims over an array of receivers, be able to learn more about time that it takes it to travel. We'll learn more about the route that it takes, where it goes through the islands or through the strait, and we'll learn more about whether it made it and how far it made it up before it was no longer seen or it's out to the ocean. We'll be able to learn that about those fish. Last thing I'll leave you with is seafood, especially salmon, is great for your body. It's great to eat, and we encourage everyone to eat as much seafood as they can, wild or farmed. We're getting into barbecue season, and I know my consumption of salmon will certainly go up. And thank you very much for your time, and again, I hope to see you all at the Seafood Festival. I know we'll see the mayor there, and I hope to see council and anyone here. It's going to be a great time. We're looking to invite more people to the Comox Valley to enjoy the seafood sector and the farmers themselves.
Okay, thank you. Any questions from members of council? Go ahead, Councillor Price and Swift.
Yeah, and thank you for the presentation and for what's to come in the Seafood Festival. I was reading in Norway, they are now heavily moving away from, it's all water-based raising, but to land-based raising of salmon. So do you see that something that's happening here? I know that maybe it's because they have so many, that there's the pressure on the resources that they're moving them out onto the land.
Yeah, what's happening that you're seeing in Norway is actually a greater investment in moving a little bit further offshore with some of their farms rather than on the land base. The land-based aquaculture has been happening for 35 years and so far hasn't been able to be seen as a real viable business for the industry to invest in a serious way. It has a very important role in niche markets. We see that here in British Columbia as well as other places in the world. And as we see the demand for especially salmon and other finfish products go up, we're going to need to be growing fish in the marine environment as well as in areas that are biophysically suitable for land-raised finfish. Arctic char tend to take well to tanks. There's other species that take well. Salmon don't tend to take real well to growing in big numbers in tanks.
Councillor Swift.
Thank you. Thanks, Jeremy. You talked about having 109 sites. What determines where a site can go? And when it's not an active site, what happens to it?
Well, it's a great question, and the evolution of siting has changed dramatically from when salmon farming started here in the 1980s, and many of the sites do go back to the 1980s. New farming sites are found and located today through a rigorous environmental process that takes a number of years to find a site that is suitable for farming. Also, with respect to conversations with First Nations and ensuring that they're desired in the territory. But it's a very, very. You look at the bottom of the ocean. You look at the ocean column itself. You look at streams in terms of how far and away you are to those. So it's DFO is actually just revising the siting criteria, and we'll have those finalized soon. But it is a very rigorous process from a perspective when it's not being farmed. In some cases, a company will leave the system, the nets will be removed, and the farm would sit there for 3 months up to 2 years. Some other companies actually have a rotation of sites and will move the farm infrastructure to another site and leave it, you wouldn't even know there's a farm there. It's the ocean. And in fact, when they come back after a year, if you were diving the site, you wouldn't know there was a farm there either. It's fully left fallow and then farmed. Again, one of the most strict regulations from a farming perspective is the benthic